The urinary system filters the blood to remove soluble wastes and make urine. There are only four structures in the urinary system: the kidneys, the ureters, the urinary bladder, and the urethra. There is a slight difference between the male and the female systems. The ureters come down from the kidneys and they enter the urinary bladder at the bottom. So here are the openings for the ureters, here and here. The bladder is about the same. It's a muscular wall. It's capable of great stretching. And the urethras come from the urinary bladder to the outside. Now in females, the urethra is much shorter than in males because the male urethra has to go through the penis. Women are more susceptible to urinary tract infections because of the shorter urethra. The area where the ureters enter the bladder and the urethra leaves the bladder leaves a small triangular area that's known as the trigone. This area is smooth. Most of the rest of the bladder has little folds in it so that it can be stretchy, but this area is smooth. The trigone is the first area to fill in the urinary bladder. This is a model of a frontal section of the kidney. The kidney can be divided into two general areas: the renal cortex, which is the outer layer of the kidney, and the renal medulla, which is the inner part of the kidney. These blood vessels right here are the dividing line between the cortex and the medulla. The medulla has two general areas: the renal columns, which is how blood vessels get up to the filtering apparatus that's in the cortex, and the renal pyramids. The renal pyramids are all of the collecting ducts. When urine is made by the filtration apparatus in the cortex, that urine is collected in many collecting ducts, and they all empty here at the tip of the pyramid. The major calyx is where the pyramids empty into. So this is the major collecting point for urine, and they drain into the renal pelvis. All urine eventually drains here. Urine will then drain into the ureter to go to the urinary bladder. The renal artery takes blood into the kidney, and the renal vein drains blood from the kidney. The kidney is formed of millions of nephrons. These are the functional units of the kidney. This is the filtering apparatus. This is the part that makes the urine. The glomerulus is a little tuft of capillaries. Blood flows in here and is put under great pressure so that we filter all of the liquid out of the blood almost. That liquid is collected in this surrounding capsule known as Bowman's capsule. That fluid then drains into proximal convoluted tubules, the loop of Henle, and the distal convoluted tubules. While it is in these tubules, it gets adjusted. We reabsorb materials that we filtered out that we need back, like glucose. We adjust water, and we have a final chance to secrete some things we really need to get rid of. The urine then goes into the collecting duct. Many nephrons feed into one collecting duct. These collecting ducts go through the renal pyramids and end up draining into one of those calyces in the renal pelvis area. On the model, we can see the renal corpuscle, this is the glomerulus and Bowman's capsule together, and the proximal convoluted tubules. The loop of Henle as it travels down and back up. The proximal convoluted tubules are shown a little more convoluted here, but here they are on this side, and they drain into the collecting duct. The afferent arteriole is what feeds the glomerulus. This puts high pressure behind the blood so that we filter out most of the fluid. Blood then leaves the glomerulus in the efferent arteriole. The blood vessels then break into a number of capillaries that go all around the tubes. These are called the peritubular capillaries. This is how we can adjust what's going on in the tubes because we can dump stuff from the blood back into the tubes or get stuff out of the tubes back into the blood. Normal urine has a pH between 4.5 and 8.0. It's usually just slightly acidic at about a pH of 6. It has a specific gravity of 1.001 to 1.035. Specific gravity is a measurement of the urine against pure water. Pure water has a specific gravity of 1.000. So a low specific gravity is a very dilute urine, someone who's been drinking a lot of water, for example, and a more concentrated urine would indicate someone might be dehydrated. They can also indicate other pathologies of the kidney. Typically, urine is clear and straw to amber in color. The color is due to a pigment known as urochrome. Dissolved in the urine will be a number of things that the body is eliminating. Some of these will be because they are waste products, some will be simply because we have too much of them in our body. Urea, creatinine, uric acid are breakdown products from proteins that are the waste products we're getting rid of. Sulfates, phosphates, potassium, and other ions are simply to keep ionic balance in our body. We use an instrument known as a refractometer to check specific gravity. And in order to check the chemical content of the urine, we use something called a dipstick. The dipstick is simply a plastic strip that has a number of little filter paper pads on it. These pads all have different chemicals in them that will test for different components in urine. You simply dip the stick in the urine, wait a minute or so. All of the tests have a time that you have to wait, and then you compare the squares on the stick to the color chart on the can. This is how you determine what's in urine. Normally you want everything to be negative. Some of the things we do not want to find in urine, the things that are abnormal, would include glucose. Glucose in urine is a good indicator that someone has diabetes. If there are ketones in urine, this means that diabetes is going on, or it could also mean that someone is starving. So if you had a high glucose and high ketones, that would be diabetes. Only high ketones, you may have someone who's anorexic and starving themselves. High proteins can be the result of hypertension or some sort of damage to the glomerulus. Normally, proteins do not get into the filtrate. Red blood cells could be the result of kidney stones or renal calculi, infection, or trauma to the kidney. Hemoglobin in the urine indicates that the blood cells are rupturing in the blood. Transfusion reactions can cause this to happen, hemolytic anemias, and burns. White blood cells are always an indicator of a urinary tract infection or some form of inflammation. And bilirubin in the urine is a good indicator of some sort of liver problem, hepatitis or cirrhosis, for example.